Well, here we are at the end of 2 fascinating weeks in the conference. The conference has been called Plant Health in Horticulture Wales 2020. We've had an event nearly every day, and I really hope that you've enjoyed them. I'm David Skydmore, and it's been my privilege to be chair of the conference and to introduce you to so many speakers and so many topics. We've had presentations of key issues and virtual tours of exciting nurseries. I hope you've learned a lot. I have. I also hope that you've been able to get involved in the discussions, either through questions to the presenters or through Facebook or Twitter. It's been great to hear from you. It's been important not only to hear from people in Wales and the United Kingdom, but also a huge thank you to you if you've joined in from other places around the world. I've noticed, to name just a few, that we've had people joining in from India, South Africa, and Morocco. It's been great to hear from you, and I hope you'll keep in touch after the conference ends and that we can maintain this international conversation. So what we're going to do today is go through the presentations and pick up just a few of the many highlights from the topics that we've heard about. You will, of course, be able to go back and view these presentations and take even more notes. And remember that you can also get in touch with Tyfu Cymru to let us know your thoughts and continue your networking with colleagues. Sarah Gould, the project manager, will give a short presentation immediately after I've finished on how Tyfu Cymru can help you and how it will carry forward the work that's been done during this conference. I've listened to each of the talks throughout the conference. They were designed to cover the sequence of how we prevent or tackle plant pests and diseases. These are preparing so that we're resistant to the arrival of disease, active in the prevention of the arrival of disease through our biosecurity and hygiene measures, diagnosing a problem should it arise so that we're able to select appropriate measures, and then implementing control. We also need to be able to mitigate the effects of pests and diseases through making our businesses resilient through diversity, contingency, and finance. During the conference, we've seen the very pleasing and well-deserved award of the Nobel Peace Prize to the World Food Programme. The World Food Programme was established by the United Nations, just as was the International Year of Plant Health. We're striving towards the same goals. The Nobel Committee said the World Food Programme was declared winner of the Peace Prize for its efforts to combat hunger and for its contribution to bettering conditions for peace in conflict-affected areas. I think we need to be proud of being part of an industry which has these goals. We need to be proud of supplying healthy plants and food to our nations and to each individual customer, for providing places of well-being in parks and gardens, and for contributing to the limitation of global heating. We need to continue to do so, and that means, without any doubt, that we need to maintain and improve our already high food and plant standards, and make sure that our practices are environmentally friendly, so we really are a green industry in practice, not only in name. As I say, I've listened to each of the talks throughout the conference, and there are several things that have been impressed on me. Firstly, the importance of the industry to economies. For example, Pippa Greenwood from HTA.
What is the significance of horticulture in the UK? Well, across the UK, ornamental horticulture and landscaping support 568,700 jobs. That's the equivalent of 1 in every 62 jobs. And this contributed an estimated £24.2 billion to the national GDP in 2017, with garden tourism accounting for £2.9 billion of this, further illustrating the massive importance of horticulture in all its guises. Much produce is sold within the UK, but horticulture is an international business. In 2019, the total value of ornamental imports, excluding cut flowers, was £371 million, 69% of those imports coming from the Netherlands. So there's a lot of potential for the UK to produce more and to have greater sales in its domestic market.
Secondly, the breadth of the horticulture industry. It provides food, vegetables, and fruit for a healthy diet. It provides ornamental plants to create gardens and parks and to refresh the indoors, and trees and shrubs for woodlands. And thirdly, skills. The importance of the industry and its breadth of products can only be delivered through the skills embedded in the people of the industry. Skills in propagating plants, growing them, and that's knowing about their climatic and soil requirements and their feeding. Protecting them from pests and diseases, marketing and selling them. And all those industries which support the growers, the glasshouse and polytunnel manufacturers, the suppliers of the control measures, the compost manufacturers, the landscapers, the accountants, the governments and agencies, the scientists, agronomists, and consultant advisors. So, what's my pick from the talks that we've heard? By the way, these can all be watched again on the Tyfu Cymru YouTube channel, and some will be in extended formats. We began with Pippa Greenwood, Horticulture Manager at the Horticulture Trades Association, who we've just heard from. Pippa talked about the challenges facing the industry, for instance, from biosecurity risks and changing plant passporting systems and border checks. She also described the innovations that are changing the industry, such as the increase in online sales and click and collect, as new gardeners discover plants or other gardeners rediscover their interests. Products need to be presented in a user-friendly way, and customers expect operations and products to be sustainable. Pippa described how the trade associations are there to support the horticulture businesses. We then had presentations from both Nicola Spence, the Chief Plant Health Officer within the UK government, and Martin Williams, the Chief Plant Health Officer for the Welsh government. All horticulture businesses need to comply with government legislation, and so this was a very important session. Nicola Spence began by describing how different organisations feed into the policy making of government. She explained that the management and regulations relating to pests and diseases and research on them depends on the level of the threat that they pose. The most cost-effective way of controlling a pest or disease is to stop it arriving in the first place. For instance, ash dieback, which has arrived, is likely to cost £15 billion in trying to repair the damage it's caused. So, compliance with legislation and good practice in biosecurity are essential parts of horticulture work. Martin Williams put this into the Welsh context. Wales's plant health policy operates within other Welsh legislation, including the Future Generations Act and the Declaration on Climate Change. Martin described the impact of Phytophthora ramorum on woodlands in Wales and the problems potentially that oak processionary moth can have. He particularly mentioned the impacts on the industry of pests and diseases, COVID-19, global heating, EU exit, and the accompanying border inspections and plant passports. Maintaining plant health is a serious and important issue to governments. The presentation from Will Ritchie, curator of the National Botanic Garden of Wales, described how low-cost biosecurity measures are used in his setting of a visitor attraction and scientific establishment, an establishment that's completely dependent on maintaining healthy plants for its future. He described the biosecurity practices of keeping new plants quarantined and maintaining a database of plant passport and sourcing records. He also talked about straightforward hygiene practices which slow the spread of disease, such as reducing humidity and having good ventilation and drainage, and using raised benches to keep the plants away from pathogens that may accumulate in surface water. It was very good then to hear from Alistair Yeomans of Plant Healthy, the Plant Healthy Certification Scheme and the Plant Health Management Standard, both of which apply the concepts of appropriate level of protection and pest risk analyses, and they apply these to sites. The most common route of the spread of pests and diseases is through the movement of plants around the country. These are schemes that we all need to be involved in, and I hope you'll look further at that for your own business. I mentioned earlier that diagnosis is a critical stage in the control of pests and diseases. Anna Perez Sierra gave a fascinating presentation. Anna is head of diagnostic services at Forest Research, who give impartial advice on tree pests and diseases. An important role that they have is in horizon scanning, looking for threats and identifying trends in patterns of disease spread. And that means we can have early warning systems. She recommended that all of us get involved in this through reporting what we see on Tree Alert. Tree Alert's a citizen science way of helping build data on the spread of disease. Of course, you'll have appreciated that among the many highlights of the conference have been the film tours of the nurseries. The first of these was Creek Farm. Creek Farm in North Wales specialises in the niche market of unusual plants, growing these initially from the seed they've collected.
The beating heart of this nursery is production of plants from seed. So how did you manage to get going on that, and how did you manage to cope with the long lead-in time that you get from growing things from seed?
I started with the seed. That's what I'm used to. And as far as collecting in the wild, it's far more efficient. You know, if you're collecting plants from the wild, you'd need one hell of a lot of material. And from plant health point of view as well, that's more important. You know, bringing plants in, you need a quarantine unit. We're lucky we've got that nowadays, but initially there was nothing like that. But as I said, far more efficient with seed.
But again, when we first started, we would be away for 3 months at a time, 12 weeks. So again, carrying plants around for 12 weeks wasn't such a good idea, was it?
It's amazing that something like this has come just from seed. And it's the seed, it's like dust, it's so fine on hydrangea.
They're all things that we've grown from seed that we've collected. And, they don't take that long, do they?
No, only 30 years.
Also working at Krieg is Ellie Payne, who's been instrumental in setting up the Young Propagators Society. And Ellie described how there's a shortage of propagators in the industry, but through the society newsletter, they're providing a community for the skill. The newsletter contains not only the technical articles, but also other items like poetry. It's a really vibrant community. We then travelled to southwest Wales, Pembrokeshire, with Nick and Pat Bean at Springfields. Nick and Pat are well known to all the growers in Wales. They've expanded their business with, amongst other crops, strawberries, asparagus, daffodils, and now cherries.
We've
initially sold what we grew very locally. It went to small shops, of which there were many in the local towns, but we always had our own farm shop, and so we sold directly. And initially we weren't big enough to sell in larger volumes. But that changed. As we got established, we had to start selling through the wholesale system and into a wider market.
The strawberries that we grew, first of all, were Cambridge Favourite, which is a very old variety, and it was grown on a matted bed out in the field. And we've ended up with growing a very productive varieties which need high inputs on tabletops in the tunnels, which gives protection from the weather to the crop, and it also gives the crop everything that it needs, the food, the light that it wants, the warmth, and so you get a better quality of product.
Next, we went over the border into England to Bransford Webb's nurseries in Worcester. They supply 1.7 million plants at their times of seasonal interest. They predominantly use biological controls of pests and find that the predators are often better than chemicals at seeking out those pests which are buried deep in leaf axils. They also find that the biological controls tend to be more environmentally friendly than the chemicals, and they're easier to apply and safer for staff. These biological controls are replacing many of those chemicals that have been withdrawn. It's been more difficult, though, to find effective biological controls for fungal pathogens. So here, Bransford Webb's do use chemicals at appropriate times, but they must make sure that those are compatible with the biological controls being used in the glasshouse.
Can you tell us how you start to think about your control programs, particularly your biological control programs, at the start of a season?
We obviously work on experience and what we've done, but we draw up all of our crop protection programs in the autumn for the following year, based on previous year's experience and what we've done. And we put it together, put extensive work in through the autumn months, looking at new products, trialing new products, but also seeing what has worked well this year, what hasn't worked so well, and then we could produce a schedule. And that, obviously, in the schedule for biological controls, in particular, we have to highlight particularly vulnerable crops that we know are susceptible to certain outbreaks of certain pests, which key times of the year those pests are going to be most prevalent and the highest risk and the biggest pest pressure for that time. And we have to create a program to cater for that. But also we have to be flexible in our approach, in that actually on the ground, nature's never like that, and weather patterns can change, crops can change, different cycles. So to follow that schedule, we have to follow that with excellent monitoring and adjust that schedule accordingly on a weekly basis.
This ends the presentations, but I've been very interested to see the comments, chat and questions that have come in throughout the conference. With us interacting in this way, it added a new dimension to the presentations. I really hope that you enjoyed joining in and found it useful to do so. Thank you very much for your participation with this. Finally, I'd like to express my thanks to all those who've been involved in the conference, to each of the speakers, the interviewers and presenters, to the filmmakers, Vince at Whole Pictures and Rhys Jones at Blueberry Pictures, to the hosts of this online platform, Orchard, and to Anna Pearce and Bic Innovation for the communications. A lot of work goes into organising a conference, particularly when, as happened to us, we had to change its format and go online. But I think, in fact, that's been a benefit, and that many more of you have been able to join in. So I wish to thank the organising committee for all their work, and particularly to Tyfu Cymru and the Rural Development Programme for enabling the conference to go ahead, and to the Growing the Future project and the Welsh Government for their support. I'm very grateful to Tyfu Cymru for asking me to be chair of the conference, and especially Sarah Gould and Samantha Davis at Tyfu Cymru for their dedication and for the hours and hours of hard work in putting all the conference together. I think that all of us involved, including you as participants, have appreciated this. It's been an opportunity to allow horticulture, particularly in Wales and across the world, to come together and discuss those critically important topics in plant health. In this, the International Year of Plant Health. So at the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned several aspects of the industry that have been very prominent in our conference. We should take heart in these and promote our industry and get support from government and the supply chain retailers. We're an important industry. We have crucial products for food and well-being, edibles and ornamentals. We're a broad industry which requires many skills, technical and in business, right down the supply chains. We can't progress or indeed survive without retaining and enhancing the skills of the people who work in our industry. These skills need to be recognised and rewarded, giving and recruiting horticulture workers into substantial careers. And we need to exchange those skills, passing information between ourselves and with research through networks, as we've shown during this conference. And we mustn't forget the purpose of this conference, to inform us about the absolute need for plant health and biosecurity. They're needed to produce high quality plants and to protect our industry and environment for the long term. I do hope you've enjoyed the conference and have benefited from the time you've spent joining in. Thank you very much for taking part. I'll now hand over to Sarah Gould, Project Manager of Tyfu Cymru. Thank you all very much.
Hello, I'm Sarah Gould and I'm the project manager for Tyfu Cymru. I've worked at Lantra since 2005, and the Tyfu Cymru project was established in 2017 to support Welsh commercial horticulture. Our initial research was done in consultation with industry, and it identified key opportunities and challenges and the benefits that industry might get from tailored support and intervention. These findings, coupled with our business diagnostics and ongoing industry scanning, provide a focus for our future delivery. The following activities are currently underway and designed to respond to both immediate business needs and to provide leadership to sustain the development of the sector for the long term. Firstly, a combination of commercial and technical training and support delivered through our Knowledge Hub, grower networks and the Horticultural Professional Development Programme. We've got a database of, and we engage with 450 horticultural businesses spanning the supply chain in Wales. And we have a multi-stakeholder approach involving policy, industry, academia and sector specialists, establishing an RDP collaboration group and providing a single voice for the sector. Tyfu Cymru are able to offer 100% funded support for training and development. We've established a series of specialist networks aimed at supporting groups of like-minded growers to work, to learn and to overcome common issues together. We support growers to learn by providing study tours, workshops, expert advice, training and networking opportunities specific to each specialist network. Our training workshops provide you and your team with the knowledge needed to overcome some of the obstacles that come with growing a successful business. Our training providers have been pre-qualified and are specialists in their own areas. And with that pool of tried and tested industry experts to hand, covering topics from technical horticulture to digital marketing, this is your opportunity to get access to one-to-one advice and support tailored to your needs. The Horticultural Professional Development Programme, which is a new training programme, will equip Welsh horticultural businesses with a range of commercial skills that are necessary to capitalise on opportunities for growth and to future-proof the industry. Eligible businesses will gain access to a tailored programme of masterclasses and leadership coaching. It's designed for owners, senior managers and aspiring managers from ambitious horticultural businesses. Our new Horticultural Action Plan for Wales is intended to build on these findings and detail the steps to scale up these achievements in ways that will continue to benefit Welsh horticultural businesses and meet the strategic goals of the Welsh Government. It refers, of course, to both edible and ornamental horticulture. We've been delighted to respond to the Welsh Government request to provide this conference, and as a result there are specific outcomes which Tyfu Cymru will now action. Establishment of a forum that provides two-way feed-in and feedback between Welsh Government and industry stakeholders, structured section of the Knowledge Hub with a timetable of regular updates from Welsh Government, from DEFRA, HTA, AHDB, and a programme of online discussion sessions, particularly on plant health, inclusion of plant health in site visits and recordings to make a further series of accessible virtual tours. And this has all come about from what's happened over the last couple of weeks at the conference. So thank you all. Thank you to the Tyfu Cymru team and all our guys who've been involved in putting this whole thing together, because it's felt like a mammoth thing that's now come to fruition. So thank you all, and thank you to all the growers for their input.
Well, hello again, everybody who's listening. I just wanted to say thank you again to you all very much for joining in. As I said just a moment earlier, it's been great to hear the chat, and I think that it's been a really interesting community that's developed during the time of the conference. We've got to know each other reasonably well, although it's all been in text. I'm sorry we've not been able to come together in a conference person to person this time, but hopefully you have enjoyed it, and we will have an opportunity to meet at some other time. We've just left a few minutes at the end in case there are any other questions. Please, if you want to, click the ask a question bar at the bottom or put it into chat, and Sarah and I will both try and answer the questions. As Sarah mentioned in the film, there will be further steps taken from the conference, such as working with the Welsh Government to feed information into them and get information fed back to you as growers and horticulturists. And there'll be the presentations are going to be put online for you to watch again. And don't forget that on the Tyfu Cymru site, there are a lot of other webinars that you can watch. So there'll be future events as well put on there, as well as the past events. So please do get in touch with any of the presenters or with the Tyfu Cymru team itself through their website. I'm going to hand over to Sarah, although I'll stay online for a final word to Sarah. But thank you very much indeed for joining in, and it's been great to hear from you all. Thank you. Very sorry, we've just had a message from Sarah to say that her connection has dropped through. So I don't think there are any more questions coming through at the moment, and we're more or less coming up to the end of the half hour. So I'll say goodbye and hope to hear from you soon. Thank you very much. Goodbye.